rising liberal voice of reason. I'm not sure who called you that, Congressman, but it's a nice thing to be called. What happens from here? So educate us a little bit. We're kind of up to speed on the tomfoolery, if it was only so inconsequential. Okay. What happens from here?
Well, first, will you permit me a little candor?
Please.
These are both lousy deals. They're both Republican deals, and it's all cuts. It's no revenues. And what we know we need, if we're going to be successful in putting a dent in the deficit, is a combination of cuts. Democrats have to move that way, and the Republicans have to work with us on revenues. We've got a tax code that's a total mess, and we're leaving that intact. So anyone, however we come out, that goes home and brags that we accomplished something is overstating what's been done. Where we are.
Well, hold on. Let's stop. Let's stop where you are, because I believe what you just articulated on one, whether they agree with your solution, revenue, this or that. It is apparent to virtually every American that they're being presented with two abominable choices.
That's right. It really is true, because we have structural issues, and the structural issues are in spending. It's also in the tax code that's a mess. Republicans acknowledge that, but they won't work with us to make that part of the solution. That's one. Number two, we have structural problems in the economy. We all know that if we really want to work our way out of this, we've got to get people back to work. I mean, one of the biggest drags and contributors to the deficit is 26 million Americans either out of work or underemployed. And this whole focus entirely on the deficit, without any attention to how we're going to rebuild our economy, revitalize the middle class, means that we're not doing the work that needs to be done.
Let me ask you a question. When the president last winter renewed the Bush tax cuts, why at that time did the Treasury not make contingent of the passage of those tax cuts the raising of the debt ceiling?
Well, they blew it on that issue. And in fact, there were many of us in the House that were adamantly opposed to extending those Bush tax cuts at the high end. The folks at that level were doing well. They haven't been hurt by the recession. In fact, their profits are up, their bonuses are up. And what a lot of us anticipated is that if we gave that away, we would be looking at this debt ceiling situation in a deeper hole. That's $700 billion that we gave away essentially in exchange for $13 billion of unemployment relief. And then when we gave this tool of the debt ceiling as leverage for the House Republicans basically to argue and hold hostage the American economy unless they got their way in the budget, it was two strikes against us.
And going to my original question, how much more of this nonsense, how many more days am I going to have to lead my television show with this nonsense before I can go back to talking about job creation, the wars, and all of the structural dysfunction that you're clearly familiar with?
Well, I think you're going to be working this weekend, I regret to say. But, you know, basically, we do have a choice now between a really bad Boehner plan and a damage control Reid plan. That's really what it boils down to. But in both cases, the Republican agenda has been successful. There's no revenues. It's all cuts. And the difference between Boehner and Reid is essentially that one is short-term and the other is long-term. It gets us through the election. It would give us at least some space to try to create the opportunity to talk about jobs and building our economy.
Representative Welch, I appreciate your candor. I agree with a lot of how you frame this problem, and am regretful that we are not actually having a debate about bank reform, trade reform, and tax reform.
Right, exactly.
I don't know the answers, but I sure know we need to be talking about it. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
Our mega panel is